Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen. I, of course, am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer Mark Hansen, and this is the podcast where I interview all those people responsible for putting together the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. And today, my guest is Elle Sullivan Wilson, and Elle is the executive producer, I guess she's really the owner as well, of ESW Productions. So she's been in the business a while. She got a lot of cool stories she talks about. The first job she ever did as a freelancer, where she had to go down to Texas from the East Coast and handle everything, including hair and makeup and styling. She talks about a shoot where the main star of the shoot is a desk. And the desk has to go to all these destinations all over the world. One of them was a glacier. And when they got there, a storm hit and they had to sit around and wait multiple days for the storm to go away because they couldn't shoot at that altitude with the storms coming. And even the pilot was having some issues, feeling a little sick. So definitely check out that story. She talks about having multi-day jobs, doing car shoots, 40-day jobs, 30-day jobs, very long shoots. So those are fun to hear about. And she talks about how an 18-wheeler ruined a shoot that she was doing out in California. So definitely check that out. Some people were injured in that shoot, maybe a little more than injured. But yeah, this is a cool one. Lots of cool stories. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. Like it, thumbs up it, comment on it, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Let me know what you think. And here we go. All right.
My hair is very 80s today. I don't know what's going on with it.
That's all coming back in, isn't it?
I think so. I think the 80s are making a hit.
Yeah. I know the mullet's coming back, it seems like.
Yeah, totally.
God, there's a model friend of mine. She just had a son about 2 years ago, a year or two ago. And that kid has a mullet. She has his head like tight, real hair, and then just long down to about here. My
niece did one recently, and she looked really cute. And it was kind of like purple and going for it, big time.
Yeah. I think it's good. All right. Well, again, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I know you've been busy. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to do it.
No worries.
Yeah, let's start.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's do this thing. So tell me, how did you become a producer? What led into that whole thing? Was it a thing from a kid? You're like, my dad calls my oldest daughter from the time she was born the directress, because she's constantly telling people what to do or how to do things. Was it something like that, or did you just kind of walk into this some different way?
No, so I was it was in the 90s, and I was an event planner in New York City, and so I did parties, and I would do like the Grammys, and kind of like it's more of an organizational thing. It's more that I can take something and see it and just organize it. And so my best friend John from high school was a camera assistant. And for years, he would send postcards from around the world and, from all the shoots and everywhere he was. And one day he said, "Do you want to be a producer?" And I said, "Well, what's that?" And he said, "It's exactly what you do, except it's not with forks and knives and drinks and things like that." But so I just segued right from event planning into production.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Yeah. It was like 5 years of event production and then, into producing. But it was neat because he worked there too. So we were both full-time. We had been friends since 8th grade. And so it was kind of a really nice transition and to be around him too.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What made you want to do event planning? Because going back to my oldest daughter, she's in college and she's actually considering event planning, as she has another year left after this year. So, yeah. But she's been talking about doing event planning.
Well, I was working at the Gap, I think, and I actually just saw this ad, and it was a company that wasn't like, that I would plan from start to finish. It was more of a rental company. So, they did the tables and the chairs and the linens and everything. And so then once you got to be a good customer service person in that business, then you could go to the showroom and meet the caterers and meet the, floral designers. So that's kind of how I segued into that. But event planning, again, it's like my thing that I'm good at.
Yeah.
I could do a schedule with my eyes closed. I could see something, and like, say you sent me a job tomorrow, I could already see it in its shoot form. That's
Wow.
just something that's like my one and only talent. Because I'm not a creative, I'm not an artist, I can't take pictures, but I can see something. It's like my Rain Man. So
That's an
event
amazing
planning to
talent,
me was
though.
more just, I love parties, I love being social, and I got to like meet all these famous people. So back in your 20s, that's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
fun. But I just like putting things together, basically.
yeah. It sounds cool.
That's what a producer does. So
Yeah.
it's just a talent that I've got, and that's kind of where I've stuck.
Who did you meet? Who's the biggest most famous person you met event planning?
Oh, well, I did the Grammys a couple years in a
Wow.
row. So back in the day, I'm not going to tell you these are like 90s, but Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers,
Yeah.
I ended up talking to him, and I think that he was probably going to call security just because I was, I think when you're in real life with someone famous and you're standing next to them in a situation that would never be,
Right.
I become kind of idiotic in a sense, like just big cheeks, red, rosy face. And I just, I talked to REM, I talked to Madonna, but Michael McDonald, for some reason, was the big find.
Wow.
And he wasn't really interested in talking to me. He didn't have a lot to say.
Maybe if you told him that you saw him on what was that show? God, there was a show in the 80s. It was Rerun was one of the characters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's the name of that show?
What's happening?
Yes,
No.
thank you.
Yeah. What's happening? Yeah.
They were on that show.
The Doobie Brothers were?
Yeah, they were on an episode of
That's
What's
so
Happening.
funny.
They were performing, and they had become friends with Raj and Rerun and the rest of the gang on the show.
That's
And
funny.
something happened, and those guys got in trouble with like some gangster loan shark kind of guy, and they were going to have to bootleg the Doobie Brothers show to get out
Oh,
of whatever
wow.
trouble they were in. So of course they give this like literally a cassette tape kind of thing where you push down the record and play thing. Well, they gave it to Rerun. He put it in his big jacket and he's wearing it. And because they were friends with the Doobie Brothers or met the Doobie Brothers, they had front row tickets.
Right.
So they're sitting there. The Doobie Brothers are playing. They're all going, and all of a sudden Rerun gets excited and starts doing his kind of little dance thing or whatever he did, and the tape recorder falls out onto the floor, and the Doobie Brothers just stop playing immediately and just look.
Oh, my God.
Because they were very upset that he was bootlegging their show.
Well, I think I said something to him like, your voice is like from God. I don't know. It was just so weird. It was one of those things that you wish you had said something so much more, like more eloquent or something that would inspire a conversation, but it really didn't. So I just kind of moved
like
on.
a friend of mine met Brian. God, I'm blanking on everything today. From AC/DC, lead singer of AC/DC. Anyway, he met him at a bar, and he was working down in Florida, and he just walked into this bar to grab a drink and something to eat. And the lead singer from AC/DC was there with some other guy, and he was like, "Damn, okay, I know who that is," but he decided to just leave him alone. Well, the other guy left, so my friend said, "Like, hey, how you doing?" But he never once said, "Dude, I love AC/DC. You're from AC/DC." He said, "We didn't talk about music at all." He said, "We just talked about every other thing." He said, "It was very cool. We sat there and talked for like 15 minutes. And then, he got up and left. I'm like,
I think there's some celebrities
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. I think there's some celebrities that see you approaching and they immediately get uncomfortable because they know like this is going to be something they don't want to talk about, or you just have that energy that you're a little bit overwhelming. And I think I was that person. I mean, because I've been on celebrity shoots before, and I always sort of take backstage on those, meaning like the photographer will be more, talking to them and introducing themselves, maybe introducing me. But most of the time I just kind of take a backstage to it because I feel I almost feel like they feel uncomfortable. I find sometimes that I'm a little bit intimidating, not because of my personality, but some people say that I am. I think it's a producer thing. Like you must be in charge. So I don't
Right.
know that I'm going to connect with you really well.
Okay, I
But I
guess
mean, it's
that's
an
fair.
interesting thing because I always find like, why wouldn't, when a celebrity comes on set, why wouldn't it be something that we could just sort of have a comfortable relationship with? But it's sort of always, and maybe it's me more so because I am a little bit nervous that it's someone super important and the photographer that's shooting it is super important. And here we are. So let them take the lead. But I do find it, and maybe because of my Michael McDonald experience, I find it super awkward.
Do they seem shy sometimes? Because I've heard a lot of like, especially actors and all, are gonna be like shy
Yeah.
people.
I think they all seem a bit shy.
And comedians are
Not
severely
everyone. I mean, there's
depressed.
definitely some people that immediately cling to me because they want to be taken care of, and that's fine
Right.
too. But I find that they're shy and I'm shy, in my natural form. When I'm a
Right.
producer, I'm not. I could
Yeah.
be on set and talking to anyone and like, just talking to you naturally, but really deep down, I am very shy.
Yeah. That's the way I am. I tell my daughter
Yeah.
that it's like if I go on set, I know I'm the photographer on set and
Yes.
I talk to everybody and everything. But if you put me at a party and I only know one person, I feel
Yeah.
sorry for that one person because
Yeah.
I'm going to just be like, hey, I'm hanging out with them and probably
Yeah.
not. And if they go off someplace, like my cousin had a huge birthday party in New York and invited me to come along. So I went to the party and I waited outside. I was supposed to be on the list. They wouldn't let me in until he finally showed up and he took me in with him. And it was great. But as soon as we got inside, all these people started coming and wanting his attention and said, hey to him.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I was off on my own. And I was just like, I probably stuck around 15 minutes. And,
Yeah.
all right.
Isn't that funny though? Because we're on our own stage in this job,
Yes.
and you have your place and your comfort. And I'm the same. If I don't know somebody, anyone at a party, I am not going to go mingle. Where I will mingle on a shoot and,
Mm-hmm.
engage with everyone because it's sort of like your work family. But I'm the same. I have just a strange shyness that only is in my personal life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying now that I'm older. I'm trying to bring that work personality to something like a party or something or a
Mhm.
new situation like that where it's not work. Where I try and psych myself up. Like, okay, just act like it's work. Just act like you go
Right.
there and you're in charge or whatever. But it's
It's not always easy to change that hat. It really
uh,
isn't. And it's almost, I find that it's work for me to do it at an event, so I don't
yes,
want to do it.
yeah,
I'd rather have my drink and sneak out the back door.
yeah, yeah. Me too. Yeah, I'm with you. So when you started producing, it was a full time gig, so it wasn't
Mhm.
like yeah. So what was like your first week? Was there a transition kind of thing going on where it was tough for you? Like you had to have somebody help you learn the ropes, or was this kind of like this is very similar to what I've been doing? Not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't think it was a huge transition. I was full time with a photographer, and his wife was the producer, and she
Okay.
was having a baby, so she was going to stop producing. So she was, I mean, incredibly valuable, teaching me what a producer was. And she was kind of like a real mom producer. So back in the day, that was really what you were to be. You had to take care of everyone and everything. So training from her and also the photographer who was not only a great photographer, but a business person. So he trained me, where the client would be, where where the motorhome should be in regard, relationship to the set. Like they were so incredible and so wise in this business back then. And it was a very different business because it was all about pleasing everyone. Now it's a very different business than it was, but they were incredibly valued teaching me. So it wasn't like, oh, this is really hard, because it wasn't. It was the
Right.
same thing I do. But of course, I was making a lot of mistakes in the beginning because I didn't understand that business. I understood the event business, but not a terrible transition by any means. Wasn't that hard.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first job you did on your own
First job, do you mean
without
not
any
with
help?
them,
Yeah.
without any help?
Where you had to produce
I,
the whole thing. Like maybe she
yeah,
like handed the
I'm trying to
wand
think.
or whatever.
in that business with the photographer and his wife, we were all involved kind of in everything, but she would say, this one's yours, even though we worked together. But I could say the first job when I went freelance, we shot somewhere in Texas for an oil company or something, and the photographer was doing portraits of all the guys that worked in this great big oil rigging, and I had to do the wardrobe. I had to produce it. I had to do the location scouting, the casting, the wardrobe, and the makeup. And that was my first freelance production. And I think I was making $500 a day.
Oh my God.
But I did it all. Like I put the oil on the guy's face. I did
So
their
you
hair.
actually were doing makeup. You weren't like hiring.
I was doing everything.
You were doing it.
I did the whole thing. I went down before the photographer and I met with all the, employees, and I took pictures and then I scouted. It was pretty crazy. But when you think about it, it was all you. Like you did everything, and the photographer just kind of came in and did the portraits and did a beautiful job. But that was my first freelance job, and it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. What made you?
It was a lot of work, but it was all worth it because in the end, it was your first. No one helping. Like you're on your own this time, and this is you, and you need to make it all happen. And I did. So it was. Even though it wasn't like great pay or wasn't the best shoot ever, it was one of those things that I accomplished something on my own for the first time without all those people kind of giving me help in the background. So it was really neat.
Were you living in New York at the time?
Yeah, I was East Coast at the time,
Okay.
back here. Cause I had moved to California with that photographer and his wife because we were to go into commercials. So I spent like 6 years out there, and then just found that wasn't my thing. Yeah. Meaning I like the idea of it, but I found print production and the family style of it was more suited to who I was.
Okay. Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
In New Jersey.
Okay. So
yeah.
You've always been an East Coast person.
Always been an East Coast. I loved California, but once we moved out there, it's like, it's the same thing. When we lived in New York, we shot everywhere but New York. Once we got to California, we were shooting always everywhere else. I never went to the beach. I was always working. So It was beautiful, but it wasn't my home. And that was hard because everyone I knew was on the East Coast.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens. I was living in, I say living. I went down to Miami, South Beach for about 3 months when I first started out on my own. And a makeup artist and I went down there, and we were basically testing to try and get our books better and see what, we could make happen down in South Beach. I think maybe we went to the beach one time in 3 months.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was strange because we were just talking about that.
It was very strange. I'm like, I'm in Santa Monica. I'm probably 3 blocks from the beach, and I just never go there.
Yeah.
But, back then too, I was working like 300 days of the year on the road. So it wasn't going to be, let's go rest on the beach. It'd be, let's go rest in the bed for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. What's the longest shoot you ever did?
I became a car producer for a few years, and it was 40 days on the road.
40?
Yeah. 40 days. You would basically once you became a car producer, you'd be doing the brochures. So once spring came, we were working from spring till, fall, and there'd be like 4 brochures a year, and each one a month to 40 days. But the longest was 40. And it was funny. I was thinking about it the other day, when you stress now about a job and, oh my God, how am I going to get this done? I was on the road for 40 days. I had already produced, and you were producing the whole time you were working. So
you're producing other jobs as well?
What's that?
You're producing other jobs at the same time?
No, I mean, you might be, but I'm just saying, like, if you think about it, you have to keep producing as you're shooting, because that's a month and 10 days. So it was constantly going. But I guess the stamina I must have had back then was just, I was like a superhero back then, because I couldn't even imagine now doing 40 days in a row and just having, because it's so different too, just having everything locked in, having permits done, having location fees paid for, because everything is not as it was. But yeah, we would 40 days on the road. It was insane.
Do you have days off? or is it
No
just
days
straight
off.
shooting?
We wouldn't have down days. We would have like, so we would maybe have a tech scout day in between, or,
Right.
so you weren't shooting every single day. You might be driving one day, tech scouting and shooting. You would have time to yourself, but most of the time it was just going as fast as possible.
Wow.
Yeah. But those were great days because that's when you would be, traveling internationally because cars went everywhere. And so it wasn't like you were, I mean, sometimes we'd be 30 days in California, which wasn't terrible either. But to be like on the road in Norway or,
Oh, wow.
Iceland or whatever for a month, it was pretty amazing.
Where's the coolest place you went?
Coolest place I've ever been. It's so hard to say because there's just so many really cool places. I'd say the place that I found I loved more than I would have, like a surprising place, was Japan. Like I fell in love with Japan,
Yeah.
and I was kind of afraid to go there in the beginning, but that was like one of my all-time favorite places to be in that energy, just beyond anything I've ever been. I've been everywhere too, but Japan was so great.
Were you
Such a
shooting in the
cool
major
place.
cities in Japan, or were you shooting outside of the cities?
Both, really. We would do
Okay.
the major cities and then we would kind of go along the coastline which was just incredibly beautiful. Just unexpected things and always surprising and just a very interesting place to be.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go, but I want to go like and spend a day or two in, someplace just city.
Yeah.
I want to go out and see, the architecture and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Whenever I
amazing.
can.
It's amazing.
Have you been to Australia?
It's one place I haven't. I've been to Thailand, like I've been as far as it, but we just every time we do a shoot or, it becomes that we hire a local there because it is
Right.
so far, but I've never been.
Yeah, because we were talking about possibly like wanting to go on vacation to Australia. I was like,
Yeah,
that's a really far flight. And a friend of mine used to do a lot of he was like assistant lighting director on a lot of major musical tours for country artists, these
sure.
major country artists. And he was like, I don't know, man, Sydney was just like any other city. It had a Kmart and whatever, and I was just not impressed. I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
So
But when I
trying
went
to
to
find somebody
Thailand, it
else's
was like
den.
22 hours, I think, all said and done. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to just be on a plane that long. It doesn't even make sense. Like 12 hours, okay. But when you're like going into the next day and you're like, get me off this thing.
Yeah, that's one of those
But it
where
was worth it.
I'd have to stay for a week or two.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Like
it's
2
worth
weeks.
it once you're there. But I don't know why Australia's never been on the top of my list. I'd like to go, but it wasn't like I have to get to Australia.
Yeah, me either. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to go there, but
No, for sure.
the flights,
Especially for a job.
yeah, if I'm getting paid for it, hell yeah, it's a wonderful place to go.
Exactly.
To be there. So did you do the car thing before you went freelance or after you went freelance?
No, that was before I went freelance. So I was still with that photographer and his wife, and we started in cars, and that became our thing. Like we were doing it for.
Was he shooting cars before you moved out to LA?
No, cars started when we moved out to LA.
Wow.
That's not true. Actually, we would have little car jobs, like 1 and 2 day shoots before. But once we moved out there, then it became brochures. And then the sort of, when I went freelance, the English invasion of photographers came over, and that was it. I was then with them with cars all the time. So I think I ended my car career, I want to say in like 2004. That was when I was like 7 years straight of doing that. But it was amazing. The opportunities were beyond rewarding. But by the time I was done, I needed like a year to sleep.
I bet.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I heard shooting stills of cars is not the place to be anymore. That they're doing so much CGI.
Well, I think it's coming back. I think I did one 2 years ago where we shot for like a week, and there's some really great young and older car photographers coming back for sure. I don't know that they do the brochures like they used to.
Right.
I don't think that's like a thing, or if it is a thing, I'm not aware of it, but they definitely are shooting cars again, which is great.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Because there's so many great car photographers out there.
Because I'd heard years ago, oh, if you're shooting cars, it's about to dry up. Everybody's going over to China to shoot it, or it's going to be CGI'd or whatever. Yeah. So it's good to hear that it's coming back.
Yeah, it disappeared, and it was sad because there were so many brilliant people that you just never saw them again. They just like everybody disappeared. And then it's come back, I'd say, in the last 3 years, making a comeback for
Well,
sure.
that's good.
Yeah.
I have one of my assistants who wants to shoot cars. I
Yeah.
mean, he started shooting, and he's shooting constantly. He's constantly shooting his car, which he
Yeah.
really loves his car, which is cool. But he started shooting more and more, and and it's fun to watch the progression.
Hmm.
Because when he first started, he was getting like a cool location setting, but the lighting was off. Like you couldn't see a lot of the details. It was lit more from behind, and you weren't seeing a lot
Sure.
from the front. And then recently, I've started watching, and you just see every shot just seems to get better and better as he's posting these things on Instagram or
That's
wherever, or
great.
showing them to me. So it's cool to
Yeah,
watch.
it's all about the light. I mean, I started when we were shooting film. So we'd be
Yeah,
up at 2 a.m, getting there, setting up, and then we'd shoot for like hours, hundreds and hundreds of rolls of film. And I used to kind of joke around with the photographer saying, I think we got this like 40 rolls. But you had to get it all in film. You had to get it
right.
all, in picture. And that was, I mean, those guys they were the giants. They were the heroes of this industry, because that probably was the hardest thing I think you could ever have to do. Where in production, it was more of a formula for me each day, but I would just be like wowed by all of them and what they were getting and how they would get it. And each one had a different technique. Everybody was different, but they were brilliant. They were like across the board brilliant photographers.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be cool, but I knew it was a ton of work
Yeah, gosh.
to do that. And I like cars, but none of my cars
Yeah,
are great for shooting anyway.
exactly.
Yeah, and I started off shooting film, and it was the funny thing about film. It always seemed like the damn Polaroid was always like the best shot.
Yeah.
The Polaroid.
Sure.
There was
Well, as
one
far
time
as
I
we
was
knew
shooting.
anyway.
Yeah, I was shooting something for a grass seed company. We were shooting the new launch of the new seeds or the bags or some kind of deal, and the shot was the house, all the grass, the house, and then like a family playing in the front yard. And we shot a Polaroid of everybody to make sure we had it what we were all looking for. Art director liked.
Hmm.
I swear we just kept shooting. I don't know that we ever repeated that Polaroid.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because I think there was a flag in the background, and the wind hit the flag just right as we shot the Polaroid. And
Right.
I don't think we were ever able to get that flag to do that same thing ever again.
Those
Unfortunately.
darn Polaroids.
Yeah. I was like, damn, I should have kept that and just scanned it. Use that
Exactly.
thing. So when you went freelance, what made you go freelance, first of all? And how scary was that? Or was that something where like it just happened and it wasn't you didn't think too much about it? Or how did that work out?
So when I was in California, I was completely burnt from being a car producer.
I bet.
And because the photographer I was with was becoming a director, and that was not my path. I came home and I kind of landed in Connecticut here where my mom lived, because everybody had moved from New Jersey. Everyone was gone. They were all here. And I didn't want to move back in with my mom, because that, I'm in my 30s or whatever at this point, but I just sat on a couch, I think, for like every day thinking, what can I do now? Like I took a little bit of a sabbatical thinking, what is it that I can do? And someone kept calling me about production. And I was just so fried that I just no. And then all the jobs that were being presented to me other than being a producer were so horrible sounding. I just thought, and I'm in Connecticut now where I'm, this is like foreign to me. What could I possibly do to make that kind of money? What can I do to travel? And then it just became, all right, try it again. And I was super nervous. The first job I told you about,
Yeah.
I was super nervous. Like, you're sending me down to Texas and I'm going to scout it. But then it was, this is what I do. This is what I'm good at. And it was the next step. It was a simple idea. And it was like, yes, this is where I'm meant to be. And I was just freelancing with so many different people and meeting so many wonderful people that it was a given that this was my role.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it didn't take it wasn't like a ton of work to make it happen. It just kind of.
No, not really. I mean, it's
aside.
like, again, that's kind of my thing, is to coordinate, to make things happen. And so it didn't matter who I was working with. You know, it was hard because I had been with that photographer for 7 years, and then all of a sudden you're meeting so many different people, and oh, it's not just this one way, or it's not just this one person. So everything was sort of like a new adventure. Every photographer was a new relationship, and it was really even more exciting to have those opportunities. And then I became, you know, meeting so many more people in the world and in the industry that it was really amazing. It was kind of when my new family, my new work family started. I started to create this family that I work with all the time. And that was pretty amazing, you know, just levels and levels of people throughout the next, whatever, 20 years.
Yeah, well, I saw your list of clients, and wow,
Yeah. Well,
impressive.
half of my life I've been a producer. So, you know, which is kind of weird to even think that you've been doing something that long
Yeah,
and just the same thing, but it's not the same, because every single job is a different challenge and a different adventure and a different group of people. So for me, it's always been, okay, this is something new, and that's what's kept me here that long, for sure.
yeah, it's a fun job. I always said, my brother and I were talking. He's an architect, and I said, you know, both of us could have done totally different things, you know, and
Totally.
gone and worked in a cubicle with a suit and tie at the bank, you know, and I would have hated every second of my life.
Oh
And
yeah.
it would have always been the same thing. I had two jobs out of college, and it was basically one of them was just the same thing every single day over and
Yeah.
over again. And I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You know, I got to get out and do something different. And that's when I decided I was just going to go full time taking pictures.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like we live, I always feel like it's a bit of a fairy tale in a way, because everybody that is in this business, we're not working in a reality. We're
Right.
creating things that are not there. We're creating things to be fake, to be real. So it's almost like if you're the kind of person that believes in fairy tales or adventures or whatever it is, this is our place. This is where we grow, and this is where we become even better than we were, because we're living the dream. And it's
Mhm.
funny because I always, you know, everybody always says that. I don't know what I would do if I stopped doing this. I hear that more now than ever, but it's almost like, don't stop it then. If you don't have to, if you
Right.
don't have to and you love this job, then don't stop it and keep going, because you'll always find people that want to work with you. You'll always find opportunities in this business. And I think that's what keeps me going, you know, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's a great business. I've had a couple of friends like, this is what I want to do. I want to shoot, you know, this. I'm like, you should do it. You know, go for it, do it. I said, but it's not always easy,
Mhm.
especially, you know, as a photographer. It's a lot of work to try and get those jobs to come in and to get
Yeah.
the clients to pay what you need to be paid. I said, but like me, there was never a plan B.
Right.
So when I decided this is what I was going to do, I really didn't have a choice.
No.
And so I had a degree in advertising, but I couldn't find a job straight out of school with that. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. So I told them, it was like a couple of assistants. I said this, like, if you really want to do it, if there's a plan B and you don't hit it in the first 3 years, you're probably going to fall back on plan B.
Yeah.
And then you're probably going to be miserable. And about 10 years down the road, you're going to look at your life and go, shit, I should have just kept going
Yeah.
and try to take pictures. Unless you just suck at taking pictures. I mean,
Then plan B is probably a good
plan B is
idea.
probably good.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, but hopefully enough people will tell you in that first 3 years that this is terrible, and you can, you know that plan B is the way to go.
Exactly.
My God. So what was the first job that you just thought was big on an international scale or a national scale or maybe even just had a model or celebrity in it that you were maybe slightly nervous about the first time?
I would say, well, you know, anytime that I would be going international on any job like that, that was always very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But we had a job, I think it was with IBM, where we had to bring a desk everywhere. And so this one desk had to be on the top of a glacier. It had to be on a train track. It had to be on the side of a highway. It was like, had to get everywhere. And I think that job, it was so much fun. I mean, getting it on the glacier and waiting like 5 days for the snow to stop, those things were really fun. But it was a very sort of stressful job. There's no talent. It wasn't a big crew, but had to be this desk and always had to arrive on time. And so it was stressful because, we're going different places. We'd get there, maybe the desk was a day late. And that one, I think, out of all of them, and I've been, around the world and getting scared of, oh, we're here, we're there, we're going to the next country. But this one was so particular and so specific that if the desk wasn't there, we weren't shooting.
So what did you do?
And it was traveling ahead of us or behind us. And so that one, I think, out of all the jobs I've ever ddone, gave me the most stress.
I could see
Crazy
that.
enough.
Well, I could easily see that.
Yeah.
What do you on a day, say the desk shows up a day late, or like you said, you had to wait for the days for the snow to stop. Was that
Those
built
were,
in, or is it
obviously agency client costs and stuff, because they had to have this one layout was that we were going to be shooting in Mount Alyeska on the glacier. And we got there and the desk got there, but then all of a sudden the storm came in and we couldn't go up there because you're going up with those planes and landing, and then you have to get out of there before the next storm.
Wow.
And our local guide had like his one pack for emergency overnight. And I'm like, you have one pack and there's like 10 of us. What happens if the snow comes in? So we finally get up there, and our pilot had ear infections. God. And you're not supposed to fly, obviously. So he had to keep going up and, back and forth. And I remember the last one, he didn't look good. And I'm thinking, I don't, nothing of it felt safe. And there was, crevasses, you had to have a stick where you walk so you wouldn't fall through the glacier. It was pretty harrowing, but we did it and we all got down there safely. And it was amazing. It was probably the most exciting thing I've ever done.
Wow. Did the pilot make it?
Yeah, he did. He did. But he kept saying my ears hurt. I'm like, why are you the only pilot on this job?
Wow.
I don't understand.
It sounds like it
worked out
though. How many different places did you go for that one?
That one, I want to say we shot it over a year. So maybe 12 different places. We definitely had like a year campaign with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was fun.
One of those to kick in.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with this business is like, you'll get a client where you're very lucky to have repeats. Sometimes it's like 4 years of this great client. You go around the world with them. And then when it ends, you're kind of really down. But then you realize, God, I just had 4 years with one client. I just kind of had this amazing blessing that a lot of people don't get. So when it does come, one day or 2 years, we're so blessed to have those experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of those. I mean, I think about that all the time. If I've had a job or when I had a client and I'll end up not shooting for them anymore, I think, well, I had them for like what you said, 4 or 5 years or something.
Yeah,
that's a decent amount of time.
That's a decent amount. Yeah.
Yeah, have one.
That's a
client.
lucky thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very happy when those happen and you have those repeat clients like that.
Well, obviously it has to do with you personally. It's about your work. It's about your personality. They're coming back to you because they had such an amazing experience. So it's not just, in the end, if you're thinking about, wow, this is coming in, this job, this money, it's really you've caused that. And I think that's a pretty special thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I try to make sure I don't get to a point where I take it for granted.
No.
Where I'm just, the next job, I've been shooting for them for the last 3 years.
Yep.
We'll be fine. I can get this. Because I learned a long time ago, it can disappear quickly.
Nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
So
I always do. The way I see it is every job I do, there's somebody trying to take the job from me. So I need to do this shoot the best I can to make sure they book me again next year.
Exactly.
Next month or whatever, instead of the other 500 people who are trying to get this exact same job.
Yep. That's the best attitude to have for sure.
So overall, was the desk job your favorite job that you've done, or were there?
No, I'd say my favorite, I had gotten the Justice client, it's like teen clothing.
My daughters used to
in 2016. And it was kind of like a rekindling of myself and my career in that a good friend of mine, a photographer, had gotten me this client and I went and met them. And out of all the producers that they were interviewing, they met me and they chose me. And it became, because I'm 27 years in this business. So as an older producer, working with these younger people and creating a whole new family, like a pod of really wonderful people. I think for me, even though the jobs weren't incredibly challenging, it was a relationship that brought on so many good things for me in the later part of my production life. And just, figuring out different ways to be around people and different ways to work with new people, but then us all coming together and having a magical 4-year run that was sort of unprecedented in the best personalities I've ever been around. And I have so many friends from so many different eras of my career, but that was like, it was almost like being unicorns. It wasn't real, and of course it ended in COVID, but it was just really beautiful, generous souls and working with young kids, which I hadn't really done. And just their energy alone and feeling so special about what they were giving, that was such an amazing thing to see. And so that for me was probably my most rewarding time of my career so far.
Oh, did you have kid wranglers?
Yeah, we always, not wranglers, we have studio teachers because they're like, between the ages of 11 and 14.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been around kid wranglers before, and I feel like they're like magical beings as well.
They are. And there are times where I'm like, are you doing lines in the bathroom where you smoke? How do you have this kind of energy at this time in the morning, or 5 hours into this, you still have the same amount of energy you had at the beginning of the day? I don't
Again, that's their
it.
kind of Rain Man thing. That's what they're good at. That's what they're doing this for, because they have that energy that never stops, never gives up. So I'm always impressed with their whole thing.
Oh, I am too. And I thank God for them when I shoot, when I shoot little kids.
For sure.
But yeah, it's always amazing to have them there like that. I can see why Justice would choose you. I mean, I would think, for me anyway, that a producer with a lot of experience would be the one I would want to pick, as opposed to one who only has 3, 4, 5 years of experience. Because if something comes up on the shoot, you're going to probably have already experienced it and know how to take care of it. And
yeah, I mean, I think today, when I started, there was probably, I'm going to say 10 producers in this country, and they had been producers for a long, long time. And whether they were in cars or whether they were in lifestyle, whatever, now there's so many producers like photographers. There's just so many of us, which is wonderful. But I always hope, I want to always help this industry in any way I can to heal, whether it's helping a producer, giving them information. But I always hope that experience does count in some way, because, there's most of the people on set now, I could be their mom. You feel they're all in their 20s or 30s, and that's fine. I don't mind that. I think that everybody has a talent from the time they're born. But you hope that when someone's choosing a producer or a photographer, that they realize their experience. But on the other side of it, everybody should get an opportunity and a chance. So I don't know if they chose me from my experience or from the fact that I am I'm a production company, but it's me. And I think sometimes when people have a lot of production companies interviewing for a job, but they're like that big, 8 layers of people, I don't think that's what they were looking for at the time. I think they were more looking for somebody who was going to take care of them like a mom and like a family. And that's really what happened. And it was just a winning combination.
So when did you go from freelancing as just a producer to having the production company?
So I freelanced for, I'd say from 2005, 2004, maybe 5 years. And then I started my company, which had many names. It sort of changed every 3 years. And finally I'm like, why don't you just use your initials?
I was going to say, so is it ESW or is it Love and Trust?
So ESW Productions is my company. And then what I decided to do, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, is create Love and Trust for my team. Like that was, they are my love and trust. They are my family. They are the people that make me who I am. And so I have two websites, but they're both ESW Productions, but it was more to celebrate the people that help me be who I am.
Okay.
And so we're the Love and Trust family, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's my crew.
That's very cool. I mean, when you have a whole crew like that of people that you trust and it's like your family, that's the best part of all of this.
And it was really hard because in COVID, we didn't really see each other because, we didn't work for most of the year. And I, as much as we all love our families, part of who I am is a producer that socializes with many people. And I was having that, I guess they called it the heartache disease. And I had it. I was physically having it because I couldn't be around them. And the whole Zoom and remote shooting thing, you're sitting in your office doing this for hours. But that physical aspect and that social aspect is who I am. It's part of me. It's like part of my soul. So that was a very difficult year to not be around the people that I work with.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom is nice, but it's not. It doesn't take the place of being there with somebody.
No, it doesn't. I do appreciate Zoom for meetings because I think it makes everyone a little bit more interested and responsible on the calls. Yeah. Because everybody would probably be doing whatever they were doing. But I do like that aspect of it. I think having conference calls with everybody there is way better. But I don't, the whole shoot thing going on and just sitting there for 10 hours while you could see people running around and being on set, that was really hard.
Yeah. How was your first shoot with COVID, after COVID became a thing? What was that like?
With the first one we did was like, maybe one talent and 3 people. We just kind of started really, really tiny and then started building and building. I just did probably the biggest one I've done, in California for 4 days, which was frightening in the beginning. Like during the prep, it was really scary, especially since I wasn't going to have most of my crew, because when you don't work for a year on the West Coast, and I'm usually on the West Coast 6 months out of the year, you lose all your team. So I had like kind of a whole new team that were amazing, but it was pretty scary at first, but then it's not, because what I'm supposed to do regardless is keep everybody safe. That's my job. It always has been my job.
Right.
So to add the other layer of the COVID safety team and the masks and the temperatures and the nurses, it's just what we would do anyway. And it's better to be wise and have the knowledge and be on set and make sure everyone's working than us not working, because we know how to keep people safe. I think our sets are the safest place to be. We take every precaution. So I think it's a great thing that we're back. And I know it's a little bit harder and it's more money, but it would keep this business alive. And I think that's the most important thing to do.
Yeah.
We can't keep going through years where no one's working. If we're doing it right and we're taking our COVID tests and our, all those different things we've been watching for a year, I think we're all going to be fine. And we would keep everybody safe from harm.
Yeah. It seems like it's finally starting to pick up.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. It's coming around again, which is nice.
Yeah, because I think people just, like you said, they just can't go but for so long before you got to get back to it.
It was really hard.
But and the people I know who are at major companies doing it, they would say, we have assets for this next year, but after that, I mean, we can go back and pull some stuff, but after we only can do another like full year, maybe.
Yeah.
But after that, we're going to have to start shooting something or doing something, because we can't just keep pulling these things from what we've shot before. It's just not going to work.
Definitely not. And it's coming back. And I see it with, we're bidding and maybe things go away because, people aren't exactly ready. But I think people are ready to go. And now that people are getting vaccinated and different things, it's definitely happening. And we'll recover. We always do. We're one of those businesses I feel like always heals itself somehow. But I think when people are taking precautions and doing what they have to do, then why wouldn't we be shooting? Yeah. So let's shoot.
Exactly. Yeah. I got my vaccine. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
I've actually got to fly out to LA next month for 2 days. I did that back in October on American Airlines. Mm-hmm. They don't care, man. They're like filling every seat they can on that plane.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody is now. In the beginning, you always had the middle seat open, but I tend to fly JetBlue because I feel really safe with them.
Yeah.
I think the other ones, they are hurting people on planes, but I felt JetBlue kind of kept it a little empty anyway. But you just have to wear your face mask, 2 of them, and your shield, and you'll be fine. And
Yeah.
don't eat the food.
No.
Don't eat anything.
I'm not eating anything on the plane at this point. No, for sure. So if you had to pick a location to shoot, where would you want to go? Was it be Japan or would it be someplace else?
It would be Italy because I just
Italy?
love Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
Every time we've shot in Italy, it's been just it's just a dream place. It's so amazing, both with locations and food and people, and I would definitely pick that if I had to go internationally. That's where I would go for sure.
Where in Italy? Any place specific?
Tuscany is always kind of one of the prettiest places to be, I think. But Rome's pretty amazing too.
Yeah, I gotta take my daughters to Italy. They haven't been.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
they would love that.
we're gonna go to Greece not this summer, but next summer.
Nice.
My oldest graduates from college, so that's gonna be her trip for graduation. We're gonna take her to
That's
Greece.
a nice
Have you been to
trip,
Greece?
yeah. I have, yeah.
How's that?
I went to Athens, and it was a hard shoot. So it was one of those where, most producers are always in their room.
Yeah.
Which is, everybody's like, oh, I'm so jealous of you. You have the best job and you travel everywhere. So I'm either in the room or in the back of a car looking out at the view.
I noticed
so
that about producers.
Yeah. I didn't really experience that much there, but it was a hard job from what I remember. And I just feel like I didn't get to really partake. My thought was I should start staying 2 days after.
I was gonna say, do you ever build in days?
I don't, because I was, knock on wood, I was always so lucky to have something. And I also wanted to get home, see the family if there was something else coming up. But I never have ever stayed an extra day or really enjoyed a place, which I probably should have, but I just didn't. I didn't even think about it, and I should have. But you can't go back. So
I get that. I mean, I usually don't build in extra days. So if I have time and get to see someplace where I'm somewhere, it's only because it was a half day shoot. The last day was only a half day or something like that. Or we shot so long, we had to, we couldn't fly out till whatever. So whatever it was, the only way I stayed and saw anything anywhere I've been has been if it was built in somehow to the shoot that we couldn't fly out any earlier. And I got, more time to hang out.
I know I was always jealous of the crew because, we'd get there for a tech scout day or a travel day, and I'd have to go right to the room and do the schedules and the call sheets and the shot list, and they'd be out, and I could see and when social media started, like, oh man, they're really having a good time.
Yeah, that is true. At least I get to see things.
Yeah, they really have lived their lives very well. So, but I've seen a lot of great hotel rooms.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, I can't remember where I went, somewhere in California or something. I don't remember where I was. And how was it? I don't know. I literally saw the hotel room and the location.
Yeah.
And that was it. I didn't get to go exploring. But I probably saw more than you see.
Yeah. Most of the time.
Yeah.
But again, it's but I'm still there. I could say I've breathed in the air in Europe, or, I'm definitely there. And I definitely see our locations are always beautiful. We shot in White Sands, New Mexico, and I couldn't imagine a better.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness. What a beautiful place, and just such an amazing experience. Every time I've been there, I felt like there was something more magical going on there than most places. But we get to see, and we get to be there for sunrise, sunset, or whatever the situation is. And we've eaten very well.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's come on, I can never, the meals I've had in my life, I can never, ever compare to any other job or any other lifetime. So
God, we were
at least I've got that.
We were someplace in South Beach. It was on Lincoln somewhere. There was some restaurant on Lincoln, and the whole crew, everybody was there, and we had dinner the night before the first day of shooting. And we all ordered, there were probably 10 or 12 of us. So we ordered 3 appetizers. Well, the appetizers came out where 1, maybe 2 would have been enough to take care of the whole entire table.
Sure.
So the 3 appetizers were just ridiculous. And then they brought you the food, and the food was on plates, that were like this big, stacked that high.
Yeah.
So by the time the main meal showed up, nobody was hungry. The food was really good, but you only ate a little bit. We had probably 5, 6 to-go boxes by the time it was over. And we're all shooting the next day, so we don't really have anything to do with it. So my assistant took them and went and handed them out to every homeless person he could find.
Nice, yeah.
So she's like, here you go. But it was some really great food. But that's
great.
That's the shoot where I do remember the food was just, wasn't even the quality of the food, just as much as the amount of the food was just ridiculous that they handed out at some of these places. Do you recommend photographers, hair and makeup, stylists, that kind of to clients, or do they usually come to you with that set?
It really depends on the job. I mean, most of the time, the photographer now will have their own team, where in the old days, it wasn't that way. It would be, I would recommend people and kind of started keeping my family traveling with me. And it's funny because that's kind of almost how I lost my original family, is that the photographers used to ask us, we would put the crew on, and then maybe 2000s, mid 2000s, photographers came with their own team, which is totally fine. Like me, I would want to have my team, crew around me. So I think it's a 50-50 for sure.
Yeah. I've noticed for me lately, it's been weird. I've had a lot of times clients have already picked out hair and makeup or picked out stylists before they even call me. And
I guess is that more in the fashion or beauty business?
That was more on the fashion side of the shoots, as opposed to the advertising. The advertising end, they
want our team usually advertising, hopefully anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, which is good. I had one shoot. It was down in Atlanta, and it was through a production company, and they wanted me to use everything straight from them. They wanted the assistants to come from them, the laptops to come from them, all my equipment. They wanted me to use their camera. Like, some things.
That's not going to work out.
That's not happening.
It's getting different, and it always seems to. It almost like goes through a cycle. That stuff, like you hear, okay, well, this client only works with this producer, and so that means that photographer can't bring his producer on or can't bring his team on. And I always find that to be very strange. Although then I was in that situation with Justice because I was their producer, and then we would bring in the photographer, tell them, here's your new team. So I guess I've seen it both ways, but I think it's better when a photographer gets to have their own team.
I like it.
Yeah.
Coming from my end.
For sure.
Yeah. But I understand what you're talking about too, because I have had clients where literally Patrick DeMarchier could send in his book and they wouldn't look at it. Mm-hmm. Because, or whoever the biggest photographer around in whatever we're shooting, they were just like, they would just sit in a corner because they liked me and they were going to use me.
Right.
And those are great to have.
Those are great clients to have for sure.
I hate when it happens the other way around.
Yeah.
So we got a photographer we've been using for the last 15 years. I had actually called somebody one time and they said, thank you, but we have a photographer we've been using him for the last 20 years. I was like, really? And they said, yes. Okay, well, when he dies,
give me a call.
Yeah, because you've been using him for 20 years. Maybe he's coming to the end.
Wow.
You know what? God, what are we doing? We're hitting about an hour almost.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, that went quick. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you the final question then, because I try to keep these around an hour. Sometimes they run into God knows whatever, but
sure.
I think people stop listening once it hits past an hour. What is I stop listening after an hour. I go, okay, I've heard. What's the strangest or most interesting thing that's happened to you on a shoot? Someplace, wherever in the world.
Yeah.
Or I guess it can be anywhere. It doesn't even have to be a shoot. It can just be in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the strangest thing that happened on a shoot was I had to go drive like 2 hours past our location to get a permit. We were shooting cars on this road on the way to where they do the Burning Man.
Oh yeah.
And so I took off, took me 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to get back. And when I came back, and we were on the road, like blocking out the shot and everything. I'm like, okay, guys, I'm going to go. And I left, and when I came back, there was a 18-wheeler that had crashed right on our mile marker. And so I'm in the traffic waiting to get, past this, but I knew the photographer and the camera assistant were there, and they wouldn't let me out of my car. So, and this is before cell phone,
Right.
like normal cell phones, they weren't great cell phones. So I couldn't get anybody. And I just remember they were okay. Everybody was fine. But how crazy was it that an 18-wheeler flips on the mile marker we're shooting at that night?
Wow.
And it was just very, very strange, but horrific, with fear, because all I could think about is my team was gone, completely wiped out. But they had luckily gone for ice cream bars.
Thank God for a sweet tooth.
Oh my God. That was just very strange, because that doesn't happen.
No.
You don't have, but that was weird. I mean, there's millions of stories, but of course I always just found that to be so crazy. Here I am driving back, whistling to whatever's on the radio and just thinking, oh, what's that up there? What's happening up there? And then it was like one of those moments you see in a movie, like Sally Field running out of a car trying to see if someone's, alive, but they were thankfully alive. So that was weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I can't even imagine.
Crazy.
So what happened to the shoot? No, I know.
So we ended up just going down the road a bit. Luckily they cleared it out, because we weren't allowed to shoot on our spot anymore, but we just went down. It was like, one of those big empty California roads. So anything would work out, but it wasn't fun shooting then at that point, because it was kind of like, that was just such a moment, and that was horrifying, that I thought, do we really want to do this tonight? Can we not be here on this road?
I can see that throwing you
off. The guy that was driving did not survive, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was really bad. It was a horrible accident.
Yeah, wow.
But anyway, it was that's part of production. That's the thing. You just don't know what to expect, but you have to be prepared for everything.
Yeah, for sure.
But luckily we were all alive.
Thank God. Yeah, yep. That's good.
Yep.
That's always a bonus.
Yeah,
exactly. Back alive. All right, I lied. I do have one more question.
Okay.
Buddha in the back. Did that come from someplace cool, or is that from World Market?
No, it's we have a local store in town, and the people are just so wonderful, and they collect them from all over the world. So I'm always in their store at Christmas time. I've got, Buddhas everywhere, and I have everything to protect me. I'm not sure if I understand the entire religion, but a little help from our friends.
We used to have, we called it was a mixed room we moved houses, and we just didn't have a place to put it anymore. But my wife had all this stuff, like African stuff and Buddhist stuff, but it was all the same kind of coloring and feel and look. So it was all in this one room. And it was a really cool room. And then we moved here, and she's like, I just don't know there's a room that it fits in. I love it. I don't want to, I'd love to put it out, but now I think it's just all sitting in boxes someplace.
Yeah. Well, they used to all be in the room where I used to do my yoga, and now they're kind of spread. We just moved here, so it's kind of like finding homes for everything.
Yeah.
So
how long have you been in your new place?
Just I think I want to say a month we've been in here.
You really did move there.
Yeah, it's been it was a real hard move, but we got here and we're all excited to be in the new place. So
moving in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Evidently, a lot of people
who does that.
Supposed
to producer.
That's why there's evidently a bunch of people wanting to move, but they can't find any houses. This is why the housing market is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very cool. I learned a lot.
Good to meet you on this podcast.
Yes, you as well. I'm glad Maria hooked us up.
Yeah, she's a great lady. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And hopefully we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right,
take care.
Bye-bye.